Hello students, today's lecture is titled Realistic and Comic Characters, the Case of Jenny Jones. You know that the context is Tom Jones and Henry Fielding's novel that we are discussing. It's a long novel, it's also called history, it's also called a whole account of 18th century England. And this particular novel is peopled with has a large number of characters in it, and you have to find out whether those characters are realistic or they are comic characters. Now, realistic characters have been discussed in the previous lecture, where the typicality and peculiarity of characters was in focus, and that made them real. But a new word is added in this particular lecture, and that word is comic. So what does comic mean? I say in passing that a comic character is one that makes laughter one's means of communication. The person laughs, and this laughter is actually to create a sense of entertainment in the mind of the reader, and the reader starts reading that novel with some kind of happiness, with some kind of identification. The person likes, he is put into a good mood, and all those things. But so far as my discussion about this novel is concerned, comic does not have just this particular meaning. There's another meaning of comic also. If you have read, let's say, some plays by Shakespeare, particularly those that are tragic plays, then you know what tragic means. Tragic means giving pain. Tragic also means giving a sense of despair, giving a sense of disappointment. The writer, the character in the play wanted to do things and he or she failed. So failure is tragic, and failure brings loss. Failure brings sadness. Failure brings also sometimes destruction and violence. And if there's violence and destruction, and if a good person dies, if a good person is killed, if a good person meets with a very difficult kind of a fate, then you become filled with pain and the character is tragic. What is the opposite of tragic then? It can't be laughter. Pain, the opposite of pain may or may not be laughter. Comic means that the person has hope, the person has optimism, that the person is successful. And you don't become successful just by chance, just that it is your luck. You become successful because you have certain traits in you. And the very idea of success in life says that the life is worth living. So if there is a novel that tells you, gives you the message that you can live your life with happiness, you can live your life with pleasure, you can live your life with some kind of victory that you can achieve over your enemies, when you can solve your riddles and problems. If that kind of satisfaction is there in your temperament, in your character, and you feel that that is possible, that is important. If you feel that that is possible, that what difficulties you have can be surmounted, can be overcome, then that attitude of success, the attitude of dynamism, the attitude of optimism, that will make you a comic character. So a comic character, yes, this is always an interesting character, but a comic character does not necessarily mean that the person has to entertain you with one's humor, with one's laughter. The comic character means that the person will fail, but he will not accept failure. The person will keep working hard, and he will not give up even at the end. That's the comic character. And it's very somewhat difficult to find out as to what exactly is positive in life, but then there are times which are positive times, and there are times which are negative times. I can give the example of a movement going on in a country, let's say against British imperialism. And that movement, gives a lot of pain, and it also gives a chance for people to sacrifice, which is not easy to do. But it doesn't end in tragedy, because if you give a sacrifice, then you become finally victorious. So that's a comic character. When you have something in you which compel you to contribute to the movement of society more and more, then you are filled with what can be called comic traits of life. And I can say it with this kind of confidence because I'm telling you about a novel which was written in the 18th century England. And 18th century England did not have tragedies, in the market. The writing that was tragic was not very popular at that time. People wanted to do something. People wanted to move around, to see new places, to think about new questions and their answers. And because they wanted that filled them with enthusiasm, and therefore they became comic people in that sense. So try to understand the new meaning of comic characters or comic themes. Comic characters are those characters who never say die, who never accept pessimism, who are always hopeful. Even if they fail, they don't accept failure. That's a comic character. Suppose I say this about comic characters, then I would say that realistic characters and comic characters have something in common, but they are somewhat different. A realistic character can be one which convinces you of its appeal, but the comic character is one which fills you with hope. So there are two different kinds of characters, and in Tom Jones, you have both. You have realistic characters and you have comic characters, and the element of and the amount of realism and the amount of comedy in a character, or comic nature in a character, or optimism in a nature can vary. Some can be more realistic, some can be less realistic, but then comic nature, optimism and hopefulness, that also can be realistically, convincingly portrayed in a novel. So anyway, I've already set the tone of the discussion in the beginning itself. And this time, because I have to discuss a character at length in this novel, and I'll go into the various aspects and dimensions of this particular subject. Therefore, this whole lecture will be given to the discussion of character and its role in the novel. And I'm taking as an example, and as a longish example, an example where I'll be analyzing the features of behavior of a particular person, and that person in Tom Jones is not Tom Jones himself. He's, of course, a great character, but I have deliberately chosen another character in Tom Jones in this novel, and that character is Jenny Jones. Who is Jenny Jones? If you have read the novel, you would be able to find out who Jenny Jones is. But then, otherwise, of course, from my own way, and from my own understanding of the novel, I'll tell you what I think, who I think is Jenny Jones, what she is, and how she operates in the novel. Let's pick up from Tom Jones, the character of Jenny Jones, to know how she is dealt with by the novelist. This is what I will do. Jenny has been shown in three phases of her life, which means that Jenny Jones is there in the beginning of the novel, in the middle of the novel, and at the end of the novel. And there are three phases of her life, and all the three phases come out clearly in your imagination as you read the novel. First phase is as a young woman. As a young woman, fresh, as a young woman who thinks very well, as a young woman who is intelligent. And then as a middle-aged person is 35 years, 40 years plus, and by that time, she has lived conscious life for 15, 20 years. She has heard people talk in so many different tones. She has gone through experiences, and then she has learned her lessons well. So you meet that woman again after 20, 30 years of description. And then, that is the middle-aged person. When she met Jones, that is Tom Jones, for the first time, that was when initially she did not see who Tom Jones was. It was a child. The child was born, let's say, it was a day old. It was just born on the same day. And within a few days or weeks, she had to leave the place and the child behind. So when she meets him again, as a young woman, as a middle-aged person, by that time, Tom Jones has become 20 years or 25 years, and she meets him for the first time as Tom Jones, and finally as receiving suspicious glances, but is quite on her own in London. That is the last part. That is when she has grown old. Tom Jones is also quite mature at that time. He has also gone through different experiences, and you can see that Jenny Jones has kept company with Tom Jones either directly or indirectly throughout the novel. So this is what Jenny Jones is like, and I'll actually tell you what exactly she conveys in the novel and how she will finally bring this novel to life in a different manner. So I then say Jenny Jones is an example of an ever-evolving character, a character who never stops moving, who always moves. So from a young person, she'll become middle-aged. From middle-aged, she'll become old. And all the time, she is getting more and more experiences, more and more influences from others, and she is reflecting those influences in her behavior. Will they be good influences? Will they be bad influences? Will she be broken? All these things you can see in the novel, and the writer does not interfere. The writer simply shows her as evolving, as changing, and changing for the better or changing for whatever, because the writer wants to show through her not just Jenny Jones's own inner life, but also the impact of circumstances that she goes through, and then your mind is taken away from the character to the circumstances which left their imprint on this particular character. So she's an ever-evolving character in the novel. Her journey is long. Already I've told you, it's a journey lasting many years. Initially, she strikes the reader as a bright young person, a 20-year-old, let's say, a witty person, one who can use language very well, when she can use intelligently different words, the usage, she can create a sense of alertness in people. People will be happy to talk to her, to listen to her, because she is witty. Intelligent, she understands. She has a sharp mind, and she can, see a person inside out because she's intelligent. And it's a pleasure always to meet an intelligent person. Sensitive means she is sympathetic. She has good qualities. She can identify herself with you. She can be your friend. She can always help you. She can support you. And she can be quiet sometimes when quietness is what you require, what you need in the company. So she has all those things when she is young. Such a person, what do you think about such a person later? How she is going to shape herself up? Ask this question and you will be generally proved wrong. Because when she is intelligent and this at the age of 20 or so, later on one does not know whom she is going to meet, what is going to happen to her. Maybe something bad happens to her and she turns into the opposite of what she is in the beginning. Anyway, let's not merely begin predicting what she would be after 20, 30 years, because the writer is telling you what she became. And then you have to find out why she became that kind of a person. So the first phase is a bright young person, witty, intelligent, sensitive. In that phase, she stood out in her company. Easily she could be spotted as an important person in that company with qualities of vitality and mental alertness. A person who walks fast, a person who turns around fast, a person who always gives you a sense of pleasure, who always understands what you say. Maybe sometimes you say something indirectly and she becomes quite aware as to what you're saying, and that gives you happiness because you don't have to repeat your words. She understands what you said. That is called mental alertness, and then she is a good person to be with. These qualities placed her in close companionship with Miss Bridget Allworthy. Who is Miss Bridget Allworthy? She is an upper-class woman, and she is the sister of the big person in the novel, Mr. Allworthy, Squire Allworthy, and he has a big property. He's a landlord in a village, and he's the man of influence. A fine person, of course, and he has a large number of a whole battalion of servants, and he employs many people in order to help run the family better. And she is his sister, which means that she will have a share in the property, and anybody would like to marry such a person because that will be marrying a person who is rich, and you can also be then in the company of people with resources. Her loyalty to Miss Allworthy, her means Jenny Jones. Jenny Jones's loyalty to Miss Allworthy, because Jenny Jones is a maid servant. So her loyalty to Miss Allworthy puts her on a pedestal higher than enjoyed by all in the novel. You can say that she is not a maid servant only, she is also a friend of Bridget Allworthy, and Jenny Jones then is admired by everybody for that reason. That's the beginning. And you yourself, as a reader, would like to read more about her in the opening pages of the novel, and you feel happy to be in her company. That's one part. I can ask this question here itself. What makes you happy in that kind of a thing? And how society is so harmonious that such a person can be given a chance to fulfill herself, to have her dreams realized and all those things. Is that the reason? Is that the reason that England is like paradise and good people can survive there quite well on their own terms? I am not answering this question, but I am raising this question. What is her fault when she quietly takes the blame of being the mother of Tom? What am I saying? My answer is clear. Tom is born, and Tom is born to somebody else, and that somebody else is the mistress of, is the master of Jenny Jones, and she gave birth to Tom, that is Bridget Allworthy, and she did it, secretly without telling anybody that she was having an affair with somebody, and she was not married. So she became a single mother, let's say, without the knowledge of the father. She wouldn't let that know, let people know about the fatherhood of this Tom. And it's a crime in the 18th century. It's a social crime in the 18th century that a woman can have an affair with another person without marrying him, and that even a child is born. She becomes pregnant and a child is born, and that child is Tom, the hero of this novel. And since this fact will bring a lot of defame to the family, a shame to the family, therefore Bridget Allworthy wants that somebody else should take the blame for Tom's birth, and she finds handy Jenny Jones. So Jenny Jones is requested by her mistress to take the child and tell the world that the child is actually hers. What should Jenny Jones do in such a case? She is bright, she is intelligent, she is good-hearted, and she is a loyal servant. All these qualities will tell her, okay, she'll make the sacrifice for her mistress, and she will own the child. Now, this is how the novel begins. So Tom, of course, is just a few days old. He doesn't know what's going to happen, etc., and who is his mother and who is not his mother, and he will never know. Therefore, Tom is left behind. It is brought to the knowledge of Squire Allworthy, the master of the house, that a child is born and the child is found in his bed, and whose child could it be? And he makes a guess, and then he does some kind of a research, and he finds out, wrongly of course, that it is Jenny Jones's child. So he does two things at that time. One is that he keeps Tom with himself, and two, that he throws out Jenny Jones. This is the big shock for Jenny Jones, that she has to leave this life of comfort for the sake of her mistress, and she has to leave the house. And because it's a servant and she doesn't have any resources, she will not get a job anywhere. In fact, she'll carry a bad name, bad reputation with her. So when she leaves the village, one just doesn't know where she will go. So already a kind of tragedy has happened. Already something that will, let this person be killed by someone in the 18th century surroundings. That is the fate before her. But we are not told anything about her in the novel for a large number of pages. She did it. She accepted the false blame of being the mother of Tom. She did it to save from shame the high-born lady who faced censure. It would have been a big scandal. Squire Allworthy throws Jenny out of the house with no one to protect her in the big world open to dangers and insecurities. Imagine this, that this world is very bad in the 18th century. It's not like the modern England, where there is a state, and that state gives protection to everybody, even those who have no resources. That's not the case in the 18th century. If you don't have any means, then of course you cannot survive in that world, and this world is full of brutes, violent people. So that's the kind of insecurity she has to bear. Think of the artistic motive of Fielding in the case. Why does Fielding show such a case where the maid servant takes the blame and is thrown out of the house? Why should he do it? You answer this question in your own mind and listen to the argument that I'm presenting to you, and then you match the two as you sit back and think about the novel. Not much is given of the life of Jenny that she was forced to live following her ouster. This pause and silence in the pages of the novel speaks volumes about her suffering. I'm using an odd expression that there's a silence about her. Nobody knows where she has gone. Nobody knows what name she acquired or assumed at that time. The novel pauses and is silent. What does it show? Think about this question. It shows only that people do it, have this fate, and nobody bothers about them, and that they die, and that they are forgotten. And this is the case not just of Jenny Jones, this is the case of all those people who sometime or the other make a mistake, or in this case, even the mistake is not made. And then they have to face the music. They have to face the very tough set of circumstances that constitute the world in which they live. Our answer then would be, as we view her second phase is of complete lack of, she doesn't appear at all, and nobody knows where she has gone. So that kind of attention that she didn't get from others, that is what is highlighted in the novel through the use of silence. So we find that she has undergone a radical change and become an altogether different person when she comes up on the surface of the novel again after many years. How does Tom then see her? It cannot be said that Fielding's characters are static. Static means fixed, that they'll remain like this all their life. If somebody is born good, that somebody will become good, will remain good when one is young, when one is mature, when one is old. In all cases, the good person will remain good. That is called a static character. But Fielding's characters are not static characters. They always change. That they retain throughout the novel their initial shape and form. And then I apply this to Jenny Jones. Jenny has reappeared at another place, at the other place as Mrs. Waters. Now she is not known as Jenny Jones. She is called Mrs. Waters. Nobody knows who Mr. Waters is. And then, the novel informs us that it's a typical army officer's woman. And what's the character of the English army officer in England in the 18th century? The person will have an affair with a woman, he'll run away with her, he'll protect her for some time, then he will leave her. Then he'll go elsewhere and he will leave the woman alone. And then there can be another army officer, then there can be a third army officer, then there can be a servant, then there can be a lout, there can be somebody bad. And Jenny Jones has been completely destroyed morally and socially. And as a middle-aged woman, finally, when she is found by Tom Jones, who is now a young man, he finds her as she is being a rape is being attempted on her in the forest, and the woman is half clad, and the man is brutally assaulting her, and then Tom Jones appears on the scene, and he sees that there is a young woman and she is in distress, so he saves her, and he attacks that rapist in the forest. And because he beats him black and blue, so the woman is very happy that finally she has been escaped. She has escaped. And then what happens is that Tom Jones takes her to a room, and this woman is very excited. She is very happy. She is sexually aroused, and she wants now to be in bed with Tom Jones. And Tom Jones is because he is a very innocent boy, and if there is a woman next to him, and she wants his company and his intimacy, then he would not say no. And therefore, they start living a life of pleasure away from the place which Tom Jones earlier occupied for living. So sexually exploited, she was stupid, she was insensitive. That is when, all those qualities which were there in her, all those qualities have disappeared. Where are those qualities of head that put her substantially above most women in Somersetshire, where she was born and where she lived? This is the question I ask. And this is a question that is posed not just within the novel, this is a question that you can pose to yourself. This is the question that I can pose to myself. that, this is the place that she occupied, and she was intelligent, but as a middle-aged person, she is completely unidentifiable, unrecognizable. Nobody knows who she is. Then we go to the further journey of the woman. Fielding presents one important motive in the case of Jenny. What is that? He puts quite effectively the whole blame for the mental moral decline of Jenny Jones at the door of society. This makes this novel great. This novel doesn't make it sound like the story of a character. This becomes actually a comment on the society of the time. The society does not give any protection to the helpless, to the resourceless people in the world, and particularly in the case of women, it is brutal. And therefore, Henry Fielding, the writer of this novel, he tells us that there is no protection for women in the 18th century society, particularly when they are away from their shelter, let's say the landlord's house where they are housemaids. There's no protection for them at all. This is done deftly in terms of characterization, under which we see an entire system and structure critiqued through Mrs. Waters. So Mrs. Waters is Jenny Jones, but Fielding is not talking only about her. He's talking about all the women who fall in the same category. And if you start counting such characters in the novel, then you would realize that there are many women who suffer in their own different ways, but just like Jenny Jones. And only a few survive as happy people, but all others, have kept suffering the fate of Jenny Jones. And this is where the novel is not merely a work of entertainment. This is also a novel which is called the work of education, work of reality, making you aware about the difficult problems that people have to face, particularly if they have no background of money, if they have no background of resources. The crudities and immoral ways in Mrs. Waters' life are instances of brutality of the society. So brutality is not of one person, the person who was taking advantage of her, but of the whole society, because nobody bothered. And the society itself, where she has lived and of which she is a victim. So she is a victim not of one person or 10 persons. She is a victim of the society. Because the society does not have any arrangement of protection for the poor people in the country at that time. Is the novel then saying that nothing is possible in England? More or less, yes. But then that's not the attitude, because the writer is showing a sense of what can be called anger, a sense of annoyance, a sense of rejection. And if a person is angry, if a person is critical, if a person is sharp in society, then you cannot say that the person is pessimistic. He is angry. Maybe he has seen people failing, but Jenny Jones lives, and Jenny Jones lives the way she would have lived, because she cannot accept death as the answer. She will not commit suicide. If she meets a person like Tom Jones, then she'll go with him. She'll spend her time with him. If Tom Jones later on leaves her and goes away, then she'll think of her own ways. She doesn't want to die. That's the spirit that common people have. Common people can be ground to dust, but they will not commit suicide. They will always try to live, wrongly or rightly. That's not their purpose. Their purpose is not to establish any truth. Their purpose is to survive, to live, and to live with happiness if possible, but live all the time, even if it's completely unhappy. So that's the attitude, and this I call a character of the comic variety, not of the tragic variety. Jenny Jones has suffered, but she has not accepted defeat. Think of the situation in which Tom meets her for the first time. A woman stripped half naked, I'm just giving that example, under the hands of a ruffian who had put his garter round her neck and was endeavoring to draw her up to a tree, and he would bind her to a tree and then he would rape her. But after Mrs. Waters is rescued, she almost instantly turns into the impulsive mode of sexuality and accepts the rescuer Tom Jones as her lover and mate. It is understandable in that situation, and because it is understandable, therefore, I would call this character comic, and I would call this novel also comic. Mrs. Waters, as Jenny Jones is called now, has violated the code of virtue, as her physical energy is sapped by intense pressure of struggle, and all these things are there in the novel, and you read the novel and you find out what actually the author has to say about it. So I would in conclusion then, I would say that Jenny Jones should be understood in terms of a realism, as one who typifies the fate of all underprivileged women in England. In the novel, such women are Molly and there are lots of others who are like her, and the writer is showing all of them as not accepting defeat, but accepting a severe kind of situation in which women find themselves. All this is seen happening at the level of characterization, because this characterization shows different people, all of them suffering in their own peculiar ways, and the novel then becomes a great work, not merely of realism, but also a work of comedy. Because people, even if they are defeated, they don't accept defeat. If they suffer, they don't accept suffering as any kind of hopelessness, and they want to live on and on. So what I said in this particular discussion is that the characterization is actually aimed at telling you that this society will not take to any kind of despairing situation. It will continue, and someday or the other, these people will come up again, and they will assume the role of changing the society of their time. So this is a novel of hope, this is a novel of optimism, even as it is realistic in nature. In fact, realism and hopefulness are synonymous so far as Fielding's novel is concerned. Thank you, and I hope you have appreciated the lecture for its characterization that I presented before you. Thank you.